Chapter 6. The Little Miner. The next day a great cloud still hung over the mountains, and rain poured from it like water from a full sponge. The princess was very fond of being outdoors, and she nearly cried when she saw the weather was no better. But the mist was not quite such a dark, dingy grey. There was light in it. And as the hours went on, it grew brighter and brighter, until it was almost too brilliant to look at. Late in the afternoon the sun broke out so gloriously that Irene clapped her little hands, crying, "See, Lootie, the sun has had his face washed. Look how bright he is. Oh, do get my hat and let's go for a walk. Oh dear, how happy I am." Lootie was very glad to see the princess pleased. She got her hat and her cloak, and they set out together for a walk in the mountain. The road was so hard and steep that the water could not rest upon it, and so it was always dry enough for walking a few minutes after the rain ceased. The clouds were rolling away in broken pieces, like great over-woolly sheep whose wool had been bleached till it was almost too white to bear looking at. Between them the sky shone a deep and purer blue because of the rain. The trees on the rockside hung all over with drops which sparkled in the sun like jewels. The only thing that was not brighter for the rain was the brook which ran down the mountain. It had changed from the clear of crystal to muddy brown, but what it lost in colour it gained in sound, or at least noise, for a brook when it is swollen with rain is not quite as musical as before. But Irene was in raptures at the great brown stream tumbling down everywhere, and Lootie shared in her delight, for she too had been confined in the house for 3 days. At length she observed the sun was getting low, and said it must be time to go back. She made this remark again and again, but every time the princess begged her to go just a little further and a little further, reminding her that it would be much easier to go downhill, and saying when they did turn to go they would be home in a moment. So on and so on did they go, now looking at a group of ferns over whose top the stream was pouring in a watery arch, now picking up a shining stone from the roadside, now watching the flight of some bird. Suddenly the shadow from the great mountain peak came up from behind and shot in front of them. When the nurse saw it, she started and shook and took hold of the princess's hand, turning, and began to run down the hill. "What's all the haste, nursie?" asked Irene, running alongside her. "We must not be out a moment longer." "But we can't help being out a many good moments longer." It was true. The nurse almost cried. They were too far from home. It was against express orders to be out with the princess 1 moment after the sun was down, and they were nearly a mile up the mountain. If His Majesty the King, Irene's papa, were to hear of it, oh, Lootie certainly would be dismissed, and to leave the princess would break her heart. It was no wonder she ran. But Irene was not in the least frightened, not knowing that there was anything to be frightened at. She kept on chattering as well as she could, though it was not easy. "Lootie, Lootie, why do you run so fast? It shakes my teeth when I try to talk." "Then don't talk," said Lootie. But the princess went on talking. She was always saying, "Look, Lootie, look!" But Lootie paid no heed to anything she said. She only ran. "Look, look, Lootie, do you see that funny little man peeping out over the rocks?" Lootie only ran faster. They had to pass the rock, and when they came near, the princess saw that it was only a lump of rock itself that she had taken for a man. "Look, Lootie, look! There's such a curious creature at the foot of that old tree. Look at it, Lootie. It's making faces at us, I think." Lootie gave a startled cry and ran faster still, so fast that Irene's little legs, they could not keep up with her, and she fell with a crash. It was a hard downhill road, and she'd been running very fast, so it was no wonder she began to cry. This put the nurse nearly beside herself. It was all she could do to run on the moment she'd got the princess on her feet again. "Who is laughing at me?" asked the princess, trying to keep her sobs in, but running too fast for her grazed knees. "Nobody, child," said the nurse, almost angry. But that instant there came a burst of coarse tittering from somewhere nearby, and a hoarse, indistinct voice seemed to be saying, "Lies, lies, lies." "Oh," cried cried the nurse, with a sigh that was almost a scream, and ran faster than ever. Nurse, Looty, I can't run any more. Please do let us walk a bit. Oh, what am I to do? Said the nurse. Here, I will carry you. She caught her up, but she found that she was much too heavy to run with, and she had to set her down again. She looked wildly about with a great cry and said, Oh, we've taken a wrong turn somewhere, and I don't know where we are. We are lost, lost. The terror she was in had quite bewildered her. It was true enough, they'd lost the way. They'd been running down into a little valley in which there was no house to be seen. Now, Irene did not know that there was a good reason for her nurse's terror, for all the servants were under strict orders not to mention the goblins to her. But she found it very discomposing to see her nurse in such a fright. Before, however, she had time to grow alarmed, she heard the sound of whistling, and it revived her. Presently she saw a boy coming up the road from the valley to meet them. He was whistling, but before they met, his whistling changed to singing. And what he sang sounded something like this. Ring, dong, bang, hammers go clang, hit and turn and bore, whist and puff and roar. Thus we ride the rocks for the goblin locks. See the shining ore. 1, 2, 3, bright as it can be. 4, 5, 6, shovels, mallets, picks. 7, 8, 9, light your lamp at mine. 10, 11, 12, hold the half and helve. We're the merry miners, boys, make the goblins hold their noise. I wish you would hold your noise, said the nurse rudely, for even the word goblin at such a time and in such a place made her tremble. It would bring the goblins upon them at certain, she thought, to defy them in such a way. But whether the boy heard her or not, he did not stop singing. 13, 14, 15, this one's worth the sifting. 16, 17, 18, there's a match and mating. 19, 20, goblins in plenty. Do be quiet, the nurse cried in a sharp shriek. But the boy, who was now very close at hand, still went on. Hush, rush, scurry, goblins in a hurry. Gobble, gobble, goblin, there you go a-wobblin'. Hob, hob, hobblin', cobble, cobble, cobblin', bobble, hobble, hobblin', hurrah! There, said the boy, and he stood still opposite them. There, that'll do for them. They can't bear singing, and they can't stand that song. They can't sing themselves, for they've no more voice than a crow, and they don't like it when other people sing. The boy was in miner's dress, with a curious cap on his head. He was a nice-looking boy, with eyes as dark as the mines in which he worked, and as sparkling as the crystals in their rocks. He was about 12 years old. His face was almost too pale for beauty, which came from being so little in the open air and sunlight, for even a vegetable which grows in the dark will be white. But he looked happy, merry indeed, perhaps at the thought of having routed the goblins, and his bearing as he stood before them had nothing clownish or rude about it. I saw them, he went on, as I came up. I'm very glad I did. I knew they were after somebody, but I couldn't see who it was. They won't touch you, not as long as I'm with you. Why, who are you? Said the nurse, offended at the freedom at which he spoke to them. I'm Peter's son. Who's Peter? Peter the miner. I don't know him. I'm his son, though. Why should the goblins mind you, pray? Because I don't mind them. I'm used to them. What difference does that make? If you're not afraid of them, they're afraid of you. I'm not afraid of them. That's all. That's all that's wanted, up here at least. It's a different thing down there. They won't always mind the song, even down there. They won't always mind the song down there. And if everyone sings it, he stands there grinning awfully. And if he gets frightened and misses a word or says the wrong one, then, oh, they give it to him. What do they give to him? Asked Irene, with a trembling voice. Don't frighten the princess, said the nurse. Princess, repeated the little miner, taking off his curious cap. Oh, I beg your pardon, but you mustn't be out here late. Everybody knows it's against the law. Yes, indeed it is, and she began to cry again, and I shall suffer for it. What does that matter? Said the boy. It must be your fault. It is the princess who's to suffer for it. I hope they don't hear you call her princess. If they did, oh, they'd be sure to know how they're awfully smart. Looty, Looty, cried the princess, take me home. go on like that, said the nurse to the boy, almost fiercely. How could I help it? I lost my way. You shouldn't have been out so late. You wouldn't have lost your way if you hadn't been frightened, said the boy. Come on, I'll see you right again. Shall I carry you, your little highness? Impudence, cried the nurse, but she did not say it aloud, for she thought if she made him angry, he might take revenge by telling someone belonging to the house, and, oh, then it should come to the king's ears. No, thank you, said Irene. I can walk very well, though I can't run as fast as Nursey. If you will take one hand, and I will give Looty my other, then we shall get on famously. So they had her between her, each holding one hand. Now, let's run, said the nurse. No, no, said the miner. That's the worst thing you could do. If you hadn't run before, you wouldn't have lost your way. If you run now, they'll be after you in a moment. I don't want to run, said Irene. You don't think of me, said the nurse. Yes, I do, Looty. The boys said they wouldn't touch us if we don't run. Yes, but if they know at the house I've kept you out so late, I shall be turned away and my heart will break. Turned away, Looty? Who would turn you away? Your papa, child. But I'll tell him it was my fault, and you know it was, Looty. He won't mind that, I'm sure he won't. Then I'll cry and go down on my knees and beg him not to take away my own dear Looty. The nurse was comforted at hearing this, and said no more. They went on, walking pretty fast, but taking care not to run a step. I want to talk to you, said Irene to the little miner, but it's so awkward when I don't know your name. My name is Curdie, little princess. What a funny name, Curdie. What more? Curdie Peterson. What's your name, please? Irene. What more? I don't know what more. What's more of my name, Looty? Princesses have not got more than one name. They don't need it. Oh, then Curdie, you must just call me Irene and nothing more. Oh, indeed, said the nurse indignantly. He shall call you no such thing. And what shall he call me then, Looty? Your Royal Highness. My Royal Highness? What's that? No, no, Looty, I won't be called names. I don't like them. You told me once yourself, only rude children call names, and I am sure Curdie is not rude. Curdie, my name is Irene. Well, Irene, said Curdie, with a glance at the nurse to show he enjoyed teasing her, it is very kind of you to let me call you anything. I like your name very much. He expected the nurse to interfere, but he saw that she was too frightened to speak. She was staring at something a few yards ahead of them in the middle of the path, where it narrowed down between the rocks so only one could pass at a time. It's very much kind of you to go out of your way to take us home. I'm not going out of my way yet, said Curdie. It's only on the other side of the rock where the path turns off to my father's. You wouldn't think of leaving us until we're safe home, I'm sure, gasped the nurse. Certainly not. Good, dear, kind Curdie. I'll give you a kiss when we get home, said the princess. The nurse gave her a pull by her hand. But at that instant, something in the middle of the roadway, something which had looked like a great lump of earth brought down by the rain, began to move. One after another, it shot out long things, like 2 arms and 2 legs. But it was now too dark to tell where they were. The nurse began to tremble from head to foot. Irene clasped Curdie's hand fast, and Curdie began to sing again. 1, 2, hit and hew, 3, 4, blast and bore, 5, 6, that's the fix, 7, 8, hold it straight, 9, 10, hit again, hurry, scurry, bother, smother, there's a toad in the road, smash it, squash it, fry it, dry it, there's another, up and off, that's enough. At the last word he uttered, Curdie took hold of his companions and rushed at the thing in the road as if he would trample it under his feet. It gave a great spring and ran straight up the rocks like a huge spider. Curdie turned back laughing, took Irene's hand. She grasped it in his very tightly, but said nothing till they had passed the rocks. A few yards more, and she found herself on the part of the road she knew and was able to speak again. Do you know, Curdie, I don't quite like your song. It sounds to me rather rude, she said. Well, perhaps it is, answered Curdie. I never thought of that. That's the way we have. We do it because they don't like it. Who don't like it? The cobs. That's what we call 'em. Don't, cried the nurse. Don't what? Oh, I beg you, please don't. Oh, well, if you ask me that way, of course I won't. I thought, though I don't know why. Look, there are the lights from your great house down below. You'll be home in 5 minutes now. Nothing more happened. They reached the home safely. Nobody had missed them or even noticed that they had gone out. And they arrived at the door belonging to their part of the house without anyone from the household seeing them. The nurse rushed in with a hurried pace and was not overly gracious in saying good night to Curdie. But the princess pulled her hand from hers and was just throwing her arms around Curdie's neck when the nurse caught her again and dragged her away. Lootie, Lootie, I promised a kiss, cried Irene. Princesses mustn't give kisses. It's not proper, said Lootie. But I promised, said the princess. There's no occasion. He's only a minor boy. He's a good boy, and he's a brave boy, and he was very kind to us, Lootie. Lootie, I promised. You shouldn't have promised. Lootie, I promised him a kiss. Your Royal Highness, said Lootie, grown very respectful and stern, must come in directly. Nursey, a princess must not break her word, said Irene, drawing herself up and standing stock still. Lootie did not know which the king would count worse, letting the princess out after sunset or letting her kiss a minor boy. She didn't know that, being a gentleman, as many kings have been, he would not have counted either of them worse. However, he might have disliked his daughter to however much he might have disliked his daughter to kiss a minor boy, he would not have her break her word for all the goblins in creation. But, as I say, the nurse was not quite lady enough to understand this, and so she was in great difficulty, for, indeed, someone might hear the princess's cries and come running to see, and then all should come out. But here again Curdie came to the rescue. Never mind, Princess Irene, he said. You mustn't kiss me tonight. But you shan't break your word. I shall come another time. You may be sure I will. Oh, thank you, Curdie, said the princess, and stopped crying. Good night, Irene. Good night, Lootie, said Curdie, and turned and was out of sight in a moment. I should like to see him again, said the nurse, as she carried the princess to the nursery. You will see him again, said Irene. You may be sure Curdie will keep his word. I am sure he will come again. I should like to see him, repeated the nurse, and said no more. She did not want to open a new cause of strife with the princess by saying more plainly what she meant. Glad enough that she had succeeded both in getting home unseen and from keeping the princess from kissing a miner's boy, she resolved to watch her better in future. Her carelessness had already doubled the danger she was in. Formerly, the goblins were her only fear, but now she had to protect her charge from Curdie as well.